The problem with that is, and this is why I said they want it all, because when does he have to turn it off? That guy that stands on his square with a lot of women, such as Jasmine and Aundrea, he doesn't just turn that off. He doesn't say, "Oh, I'm going to stand on my square in this aspect, but over here I'm going to be like, no, I'm going to be a bitch in this one." No, he don't turn it off. So if he doesn't turn it off in the bedroom, he's not going to turn it off when it comes to the finances. He's not going to turn it off when it comes to where y'all go. He's not going to turn it off when it comes to telling you what to wear. He's not going to turn it off when he tells you stay your ass in the house. It's going to be on. And that's when you err into that direction of, oh, now he's being controlling. Now he's being a narcissist. But no, you said you wanted that toxic dude that'll tell you to sit your ass down and shut the fuck up. But you forgot that he could tell you to sit your ass and shut the fuck up when you wanted to wear what you wanted to wear to the club. And he was like, "You do that shit, I'm gonna knock your head between the washer and the dryer." Now you sitting there wondering, man, maybe I shouldn't have I signed up for this shit, maybe I shouldn't have did this. That's why I said that it's you can't have it all, is because that type of dude doesn't turn it off. It's maybe. And the thing is not necessarily that it's a bad thing. If you want a man that stands on the square, you got to understand that means he's going to stand on the square across the board. It ain't going to just be in one aspect or the other. It's going to be across the board. So when he stands on the square and he says, no, the money's going to get spent this way, you can't say now he's being manipulative with the money, because that's the man that you asked for.
You know, that's why it's good to have a man that has balance, man. You got to have balance.
This probably require a mind shift.
100%. I'm talking about being abusive.
I'm talking about those guys that they talk about that they don't want. They don't know how to turn it on. And then the guys that's constantly like that, they don't know how to turn it off. But if you find somebody that got a little bit of something from both, man.
Sweeney.
Yeah, Aundrea, I'm not talking about an abusive man. I'm talking about a man that if he stands on this square in these aspects, he gonna stand on this square in most of the, if not all the aspects.
Well, all I'm saying is that, like, so for example, you're talking about the girl who might not want someone who's controlling or whatever. Some girls do want guys that are controlling. Some of it works. It's a working relationship. Some girls want to be I feel like it's deeper than just like, just go sit down and go do this and go do that. Some of it has a lot to do with their sexual compatibility. So if it works for them, it works for them. I don't think it always has to be like something that's completely like abusive in nature. Like sometimes it just might be that they have an understanding. Who's to say that the girl who has a partner who's toxic, she's as toxic as him? Usually toxic people draw to each other. So I mean, I think it's a balance if both of them are toxic together and it works.
Well, I think so. What you were describing is momentary versions of having somebody have control over you, like telling you to sit down was control over you, making you submit physically by choking you in your scenario is having control over you. I think it's a natural thing for women to desire that feeling of submit. We back to the word submission, right? Because that's what submission would be, allowing somebody control over you. You used it in reference to sex, but it can be throughout the relationship, which can make that relationship, even though it's boring because you're operating within those parameters, you're operating under the understanding that he has control. That's what real leadership would look like when I would talk about pure submission. So you don't have to fight because you're being controlled in a way that you like, that turns you on. It does not have to be boring.
But the way how you, Aundrea and Jasmine, are talking about wanting this type of man, and if you don't have this type of man, you want somebody to tell you to sit down. That mindset is toxic. You shouldn't want nobody to tell you to sit down. You should either know how to sit down and that's it. Or if you don't at the moment, you shouldn't want somebody to tell you to sit down. That sounds mad immature.
I think that, like I said, I think that whatever individual feels like it fits for them and works for them, your opinion is completely irrelevant. Whatever works for that person works for that person. And that's just it. Like, we could talk about how we feel about it all day long, but if this person decides that they don't want to leave this relationship, no matter how many times you say, hey, I don't think this is a good fit for you, and they want to stay, I can't force that person to leave. I can't force that person to stay. So for me specifically, I might not, personally, I don't really like the whole sit down and shut up kind of thing. That's never going to work for me. But what I do like is a little bit of toxicity where I like to argue. So every once in a while, I want a man who decides that he wants to go back and forth with me. And it's going to, and there's men out here who don't mind going back and forth. It's
So-
sometimes where toxic could be something completely different.
That sounds
But-
draining.
So I mean, I understand.
No, it's a lot of men that feel like
Like-
that.
So
Aundrea, your opinion, is cool, right? But I'm talking about results. You're not gonna be able to have a long-lasting relationship like that, and that's the only thing I'm coming from right now.
Thanks for hearing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, like, let's say in a vacuum, two toxic people together, bet. But I think, like I said, I don't think people understand what that comes with, because a toxic person is toxic. So you know what I mean? And I think what happens is people want to pick and choose when they receive toxicity. And so in one moment you feel like that toxicity is sexy, and the next moment you feel like that toxicity is controlling. You know what I mean? Because, like, for instance, Aundrea, you said you like somebody that likes to argue with you. The last few weeks or whatever that we've been on this planet, I've been going at you. We've been arguing up a storm. Did that feel like fun to you?
I don't like you. We're not in a relationship.
So, I'm just saying, you said you like somebody to argue. I was just throwing it out there. Like, hey, look, we argue all the time. You didn't like them arguments.
Yeah,
Bruh.
you hit on me. But I feel
That's
like
different.
let's be honest,
So-
y'all.
That's different.
look, I'll put it like this. I think we judging a bit, right? So let's put this into integers, right? Two positives make a positive. Two negatives can also make a positive, right? So even though what you see personally as dysfunction, when you put two dysfunctional people together, it can match up and be functional. If you have two dysfunctional people, I'm not saying that's good. I can't say it's bad though, because just because it doesn't work for me doesn't mean it doesn't work for them, right? Nobody else can tell you what's going to work for you, right? If it's not bothering anybody else and they're allowed to be themselves, right, in their own little bubble, as long as that toxicity that they call, and they're calling it toxicity, but it's what we're describing is toxicity, but it might not be toxicity if it's them too, and it doesn't bother them, and they can survive like that. The only part that kind of threw me off a bit was the going back and forth, because I feel like a man that would sit there and go back and forth with the woman might be sort of feminine, in my opinion. But outside of that, I could see the little bit of toxicity here and there, like, because some people are attracted to that, and some people don't have a problem providing that.
Trev,
So,
chill, Trev,
go ahead.
chill. You wilding right now. Toxic.
What we got?
I don't
Word
agree
is
with that.
born. You know I love you. So
Go ahead, give it to me.
Across
Pause.
the street, pause. Across the street, right? They was arguing. Right. Then he pulled his burner. So I got all the kids outside the house. So now I'm throwing kids in the house. This shit probably look like Fresh Prince. I'm throwing kids in the house, all types of shit. Right. So that toxicity spills over. Imagine them two toxic people, Aundrea and his feminine man, arguing upstairs. Right. You saw what happened in Brooklyn. No, toxic, that shit spills over, especially in neighborhood and living situations. So it's inevitable. But I just
And that's a problem. But that was the one thing that I said. I said, as long as it doesn't spill over into other people's lives, they're in their own bubble, not disturbing anyone else. It's between them two. It could be functional, and it doesn't mean that it has to be violent. It doesn't mean that they have to scream, right? We're not saying any of that.
Nah, but
And I'm not saying it's good for me. I could never live in that life, but that doesn't mean that I haven't seen it work. It's far, it's rare. I understand that. It's not practical.
Never seen the time
but-
where two
That's
toxic people.
impossible, Trev.
you
What
know
you're talking
Aundrea gonna
about.
be screaming like a motherfucker.
Y'all
That
don't
shit-
hear it. I don't know what you're talking about.
You want to know why? You know
Marcus, what you think
on
on that?
Trev? You know what the biggest
Go
problem
ahead.
with what you said, Trev, is
Go ahead.
we assume that toxic and dysfunctional people makes the best decisions. They tend to make the worst type of decisions, i.e., those two toxic people work together as long as it's just them until they get into a heated argument. Then they fuck it off, and the girl wind up getting pregnant. Now there's a baby in that toxic ass situation.
But Aundrea described a
Dysfunctional
very
people-
specific situation. She said a sprinkle of toxicity. She didn't say that this person is inherently toxic and just wilding out all of the time. Like, she's saying that they had a streak. So basically, I'm gonna tell you the type of person that she wants. She probably wants somebody that was like a former D-boy turned entrepreneur. That's like those type of things. Which is why I said it's not a lot of them. It's not a lot of people who play basketball, like somebody like Kenya Martin or something like that. I don't know about him getting any domestics or whatever. This is just the type of people. And like I said, there's not a lot. She's going to have a very difficult time finding a person with that kind of a balance because it's not many of them that exist. But again, I've seen it work.
Sweeney Trev trolling us, I think.